Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Bittersweet Love Talk Show. Today on set, we have a young man who has gone through rather a queer experience. And most of the times we are faced with the difficulties when we are going to ask for a woman's hand in marriage. And the process is normally very technical sometimes and tedious. And we spend a lot of money transporting our relatives and spend a lot of money paying for the bride price. But the question normally is, what happens if this process fails? And here today is Mr. Laguina to tell us his experience on what went down when he went to ask for this beautiful lady's hand in marriage and eventually paid the bride price.
Yes.
So kindly introduce yourself and take us through what happened.
Okay. My name is Benson Laguina. I teach. I also do part-time emceeing, and I have dealt with a lot of things in my life, and relationships seem to be one of the biggest challenges that I faced, because not everybody. It almost seems like everybody can get everything else right except relationships, and it's understandable. It's a very complicated environment. So mine is no different. I mean, people have gone through a lot. I have been there. Mine began in 2009, 28th of November to be specific, because that was my birthday. So I'm at this wedding. It's a friend's wedding. He had invited me to. This is a guy who I was not even talking to. Then at the very last minute, he says, "Can you be on my line?" And I say, "Okay." So this was a very strange wedding, because in this particular wedding, the bridal team did not meet the day before for rehearsals. We met the morning during the service, is when everyone at the church entrance was being told, "You're matching with so-and-so, you're matching with so-and-so." So I saw this lady on the line. I was not matching with her, but she was on the line. And my heart went out to her just immediately. I don't want to call it love at first sight, because it's too cliche. Let me just say, I saw what I liked, and I figured, well, after the wedding, we can talk. And so the wedding, we went through the wedding, everything was done. Then we had post-wedding communication. And it took until about early January for her to agree to anything substantial, which is exactly what happened. And so we began what was supposed to be a successful relationship in that regard. And for the most part, everything was okay. She was working in Eldoret. I just started teaching. So everything was just fine. We were doing well. She was very considerate. She would get me gifts once in a while. She would surprise me with very nice gifts. So I cannot really say this is the kind of woman who, what actually happened later was a shock, because from the very beginning, she was fine. And the only few things that I picked up from her was she was not very good at communication. When you would ask certain questions, there are things she would leave out. She would not really give you the answers you need. And that bothered me for a while, but then I thought it would change. She was very forceful about her opinions, which is okay, but it can only get to a certain point. So those are things that I didn't really mind, but they were already flags. I can call them red flags. People call them red flags or red signs, or whichever sign you want to call them. Yeah. And so at some point, I just got into this idea that, she's a human being like me, and she's going to change. Well, that was a very big shock. She didn't change. And in fact, some of the behavior that I saw in her continued to be even get worse. And so we get to April of of that same year, the year after the wedding, that is now 2010. And she's discussing us going home for introduction. I said, fine, there's no problem. So we went all the way to Nyahururu from Eldoret to go and introduce ourselves to the family. And up to that point, things were still fine. I mean, this lady was an angel from day one. Very nice, petite, light skin, lovely woman. We come back after introductions and everything is just fine. And it gets to August and we decide, okay, maybe we can take this even further. So we decide to go and pay dowry. And I brought my family into it. I did not want to do that because from a very young age, I was very apprehensive about getting into things that don't work, and marriage was no exception. And so I was very clear about how I was going to introduce this particular instance to my family. And of course, when I told them we're going to pay dowry, some of them were skeptical. You've only known this lady for less than a year. I mean, what's the rush? And I said, well, sometimes when you meet someone you like, you know what you want. And for me, I think I know what I want. Some of my friends as well were very skeptical, even from church. A few people were saying, this is a lady that some of us didn't even know you had. Do you know her very well? And all these things that people say. And so I kind of, okay, I would listen, but I would listen with the idea or the decision that, well, they can say what they want to say, and whatever it is they have to say, they can still say it. But my plan is to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so I can say that in a way, I also ignored some of the very critical portions of advice I would have received from a lot of the people who were warning me, because some of them were actually warning me and saying, you need to take your time. But I was in kind of a rush, and I felt I've met the kind of woman I need, and what's going to stop me from doing what I need to do? And so we went forward, we paid dowry. It was in August of 2010, August 19, 2010. And after we paid dowry, as we were leaving, the elders asked us a question. Said, so after now, as you guys leave this gate or this house, are you going to stay together or we wait for a church wedding?
The normal question.
Yes, the normal question, yes. And we said, we'll wait for a church wedding. They said, good. So when you leave this gate, kila mtu aende kwake. I said, okay, fine. Everybody will go to their house. So that's exactly what happened. So we left, got back to Eldoret, and we started planning the wedding. The wedding was supposed to be on 27th of November the same year, which is a day before my birthday and about 10 days after hers, because her birthday was some days earlier. My plan was to do everything in 1 month, anniversary, birthday celebrations. Hopefully the baby would be born around that time, so that in 1 month you clear everything. You don't worry about.
Just hold up for a minute. Yep. Before we get to the plans for the wedding,
yes.
What was the environment like when you went to pay dowry? Because here you have family members who were not very comfortable with you meeting a girl and just proceeding that fast to deciding to settle down with her. And your friends too were against this. When you got to their home, what was the environment like? And initially, had you met the parents, or this was the first time you were meeting the parents?
I'd not met the parents before. I was meeting them for the very first time in April of that year, when we went for the first introduction. The environment at my home was that of apprehension, everybody was saying, you need to slow down, you need to slow down. People from church were saying, you need to slow down. But when we got to their home, we were received well.
Okay.
Everything was, as far as they were concerned, their daughter is getting married.
Okay.
And the only one thing that didn't make sense to me was one time her cousin saw me with her. And he said, oh, so that's the guy. I think he was a distance away.
Okay.
He must have seen us coming from a hotel in town or some place within town. And so he drives by and he calls my girl and he says, oh, I've seen the guy you've been talking about for the last few weeks. That's him. Yeah. Make sure he's a Kikuyu.
Okay.
So when I heard those words, my mind, I almost stopped in the middle of the street because I was like, I mean, this has been going on for about 4 months now. So tribe is going to be an issue. And she said, no.
Was this said over the phone or?
Over the phone.
Over the phone, okay.
Over the phone.
All right.
She said it to her, make sure he's a Kikuyu. So when she got off the phone, she looked at me and said, that was my cousin. And he's happy about us. He's just made a statement that's very strange. I said, what? She said, I should make sure you're a Kikuyu.
Okay. I
said, wow. Okay. Then she said, no, don't worry about it. This is just my cousin. He has no say at home. So this is not someone whose opinion you need to really carry with weight. So just let it go. But it kind of gave me an insight into what to expect.
On the other side.
On the other side.
Okay.
And so when I got home, I could see the idea of who's this person and why I could see in their faces that impression of why did you go
that far
across? Why, But I figured, well, if she wants us to continue, she'll protect and defend us against any onslaught that her family does. And so as far as they are concerned, their daughter was getting married. As far as my family was concerned, their son was getting married, but they felt I needed to take more time with this girl, which, to be honest, I had not taken any time at all. Because you can imagine from November, we meet on the 20th of November for the very first time. This is not even someone I'd been seeing in town, or there was no pre-meeting or anything, any socialization of any kind before this day. So I meet her in November. January, we are deciding to start relating officially. April, we are already doing an introduction. So that was super fast. That is a thing that was concerning most of my friends and even my family.
Okay.
They felt this is going too fast. We need to slow down this guy. Well, I didn't slow down. I decided, let me just keep moving. Yeah. And so that's how we ended up going to pay dowry.
All right. Now you guys are planning your wedding. What happens?
We are planning our wedding, and she says, first of all, when I was paying dowry, the 2 days before I left, I had gone to the bank to get the money, and then there was an issue with the bank. So I told her, there's an issue with the money I was supposed to withdraw. I think we may have to postpone the dowry. And she said, fine.
Yeah.
It's like it didn't bother her. So I was like, here I am, I'm about to go pay dowry at your place. Something has happened and you're not bothered by it. How is that possible? So anyway, finally, my parents come in, and that same evening, there are some things that were supposed to be bought before we had to go.
Yeah.
So I go home and my parents say, hey, we've been waiting for you to bring the money so we can do our shopping, but we've not seen anything. I said, yeah, the issue with the bank. I said, you have told us much earlier. We can make those arrangements. So my family made arrangements for the money, and they told me on condition that when you come back after the dowry payment, you can replenish what we are giving you. And I said, okay.
Now, this was the lady's family?
No,
or your family?
This is my family now. My family is the one that was telling me, we can sort you,
and then,
but when you come back, fix the issue with the bank, replenish what we are giving.
Okay.
So that's exactly what happened. So we went and paid dowry. When I came back, I sorted out the issue with the bank. Then half of the money was released. Half of what I had received from my family was released.
Okay.
I took the money to her. I said, keep this money for me. When the bank releases the other one, I'll come pick, because I didn't want to give my family half cash. They gave me everything. I wanted to give back everything. So I gave her half the cash. I was waiting for the next. So the next cash was released in 2 days' time. When I go to her office to ask for the money, she's like, I didn't know you needed the money that urgently. I gave it to my sister in Soy. I said, excuse me, you took 40,000 shillings, got on a matatu and went to Soy and gave your sister money.
Your sister, yeah.
Said, yeah. Why? She needed the money. She's my sister. How can I not give her? I said, do you know where that money was supposed to go? I said, I know, but my sister is also just as important as your family. I told her, we are going to get that money today. She said, no. I said, okay, fine. In fact, she said, you are bothering me. I said, but my family are going to be your in-laws. They gave us the money on goodwill when we had a crisis. Now we are supposed to return the money you're giving it to your sister. We are going to get it now. She said no. Came back in the evening, picked her, we went to Soy. The sister said she took the money, akaingiza kwa chama. And none of them were apologetic about it.
Now your girl took the money, or
My
sister
girl took the money to the sister.
To the sister, and the sister took it to the chama.
Chama. So now the money is not there. So I told her, you've just messed me up, because my family was expecting this money for this time. Now the issue is not even the money. The issue is her reaction. She said, so what? It's just money. Whenever my sister is ready, if her chama comes through, we can give you the money even 2 months from now. I said, that is not the problem. The problem is that we are about to get into a union, and yet the things that matter to me don't matter to you. That is not supposed to be the case. We are not supposed to be in a relationship where the only things that are supposed to be done are the things that make you happy. Now your sister has the money, you seem comfortable. You don't even care that we are destroying a relationship on this side of the family because of that money. Said, fine, you can do whatever you want. At night, at 8:30 in the night, it was raining. She told me you can do whatever you want. I had to walk in the mud from her house to the main road because I could not drive to the house. It was too muddy. So I parked on the main road. I had to walk back to the main road in mud without the money. And I told her, if you don't make it to the vehicle in the next 30 seconds, I'm leaving you here. So finally she comes to the car and she's like, how can you do that to my family? You know, these are your in-laws. You should have talked to them nicely. I said, I didn't come here to socialize. I came here to collect the money that you gave them, which the impression I had was that they still have it here. Now it's in a chama somewhere. So the whole time we're driving back to Eldoret, she was quarreling me that I treated her family badly, instead of her seeing the mistake she had made with this whole situation. So at that point, it began to hit me. What if this lady feels like the things that happened to her are the ones that are supposed to continue happening? You know, she feels like she's, in this particular arrangement, she's more important, or her needs are more important than mine. Now, these are things that began to surface after we paid dowry. Before this girl was just fine. Before August, even before April, she was outgoing, she was kind, all these things, she was caring, all these things that we see and we think they are good signs. But it changes because personally, I had put both feet in it. I don't get into relationships with one leg, and I think maybe that's why.
So what happens next when you get home?
We get home and I drop her wherever she was staying, and I got to the house, and then we continue planning the wedding.
You continue planning the wedding with all that has happened?
Yes, I still.
So you just decide to put this at the back of your mind?
I felt, I just went to my family and I said I had all the money. I gave half of it to my fiance. She was supposed to keep it and wait till I bring the rest. Then we bring it together, but she messed up the arrangement. So I'll give you the half that I have, and then whichever time she'll be ready, she can bring the other one. So I still thought there was hope in all this. I still thought this girl will change.
Let's hold it right there. And when we come back, you will now tell us what you are able to see moving forward. See you after the break. Welcome back to the show. Mr. Laguna, where did that experience leave you? The money, your family, her family, herself, and not caring at all. And to this point, does that thing still pinch you? Like, do you still think about it and it makes you feel bitter? Or it's something you have gotten over?
I can't say that I have gotten over it, but every time I recount those details, they make me feel like, why would anybody do that? Why would you get into a relationship with someone where there is no mutual concern for the other's life or the other's issues, you know? So it makes me feel very bad in the sense that nobody deserves that kind of treatment. I didn't deserve it. And so here I am throwing literally my whole life into this thing. And that is what I get from it. So it left me in a place of indecision. People say once you've paid dowry, you've crossed the line. You might as well just go ahead. So I had that at the back of my mind somewhere, and I knew as much as this lady is doing all these things that she's doing, I need to somehow make it work. We've already just come from home. If we hadn't come from home, I probably would have made a different decision. But I thought, okay, if she decided that we go home, she's serious as well. As much as she's doing all these things, she must think this means something to her. Whether she was wanting to get married just for the sake of it, or whether she was wanting to get married because she loved me, or whether she was wanting to get married to have someone in her life and still be able to do the things she wants. I don't know which rationale she was coming into the institution with. But at least I figured if we went home, this has to mean something for her. So then on those grounds, I decided, let me proceed. As much as everybody else was saying, no, at this point, you actually need to stop. At this point, you need to let this person go. My friends were saying that, my family was saying that, but I didn't let her go.
So this feeling still makes you bitter?
Yes, and I don't know why. It's like trauma of some sort, because the basic impression of trauma is that every time you relive that experience, you get awakened from the actual event that happened. And so every time I have to recount this, it makes me feel very, I don't know if bitterness and anger are the same thing. It makes me feel very bitter, very hurt. Like, how can someone behave like this?
So you said this, is a sign of bitterness in this show. And allow me ask, what have you done in the past years that has enabled you to go beyond this bitterness, or to be able to manage it? Because you've been saying that it's something whenever you talk about it, the bitterness comes back. But how have you been able to contain it for all these years?
Well, one, through prayer. I've been able to ask God to deal with that issue in my heart, because there's only one cure for a broken heart, and the Bible says it. The Holy Spirit is the one who cures broken hearts. So that's one way.
But some people say it's getting another partner.
Getting another partner is a stopgap measure. which is very risky because getting another partner just means that you're stopping the bleeding for now, but the wound is not healed. And so at some point it will still bleed again. So you need a solution that will permanently fix that. So I disagree with the premise of taking another partner. Otherwise, if that's the case, then people will have serial partners. I mean, this one hurts you, take another one. This one hurts you, take another one. This one hurts you, take another one. You can't live a life that way. You'll be an emotional mess. So that premise I does not have a future. It does not hold the kind of water it's supposed to hold. So for me, I used prayer. I have tried to get my mind off those things. I try to not allow someone else to go through that with me because I know how I felt in that experience. I try to make mine different with someone else or with some other people. I also try to, one of the best ways that would have been the best would be to talk to her, but that is not possible.
Why?
Because she's already in another relationship, so to speak. And this is a relationship she's in with an ex-boyfriend whom she was communicating with even when we were together. At some point, I had to call the guy, actually. I called him, said, excuse me, I send my messages on this side, you send yours on the other side. What's happening? Oh, I didn't know she was engaged. I said, you didn't know she was engaged. This thing was in a whole village. You come from where she comes from. How do you not know she was engaged? Oh, I just thought, we've been friends for a long time. I figured maybe I didn't know she was actually engaged. I said, okay, fine. Let's say for the sake of argument, you don't know she was engaged. I do not want to see your phone calls or texts to this lady again.
So just hold on to that. I want to take you back to where you left us.
Yes.
This lady has broken the trust that is there.
Yeah.
You've given her money to keep for you in trust, but she's broken it.
Yeah.
What makes you decide to go ahead with the wedding?
Hope. I figured I've done things in my life that people have forgiven me for. And maybe those things are worse than what she's currently doing. So on those grounds, I decided, let's move forward. It was a risky mission, but at least at that time, that was my rationale. The ground I was standing on was the hope that all this is going to be different.
Yes. And everyone makes mistakes.
And everyone makes mistakes.
All right. So you guys are on your way back home from the sister's place.
Yes.
What happens thereafter?
That was actually the start of the thorn that destroyed our relationship completely. Because from then on, she decided, from then on, she would even leave town and not say anything. You call her, you say, where are you? We need to meet Pastor so-and-so for counseling. She says, I'm out of town. Where have you gone? Don't worry. Just know where I am. I'm safe. I said, but I'm about to marry you in 2 months and I need to know where you're going. He said, listen, wherever I am safe. I said, okay. And that happened several times. 2, she refused to do counseling. She refused completely. She even told me there's no way she's going to get an opportunity from work to actually come and do it. I'd met the lady who had employed her, who was a family member. And she had told us that my gift to you for this wedding will be a vehicle and a fridge, because you are my favorite people. So then I was thinking, how can a lady make such promises and the same woman denies you time to leave work for 1 hour every Thursday to go for counseling? Did you ask her? No, I haven't asked her. How do you know she'll refuse? I just know she'll refuse. That's how she'll talk. Exactly, that's how she'll talk. So I said, okay, if we are not doing counseling, I don't think we should even marry in this November, because we need at least 3 solid months of preparation before we get into this union. And she still refused. She even told me, I've seen people who marry and go for counseling later. So I don't understand why you're pushing me for this thing. I've actually seen people do it the other way around and it still works. So when I counseling yako unanisumbua. Now all the things that I was being told earlier on by friends and family, those things began to cycle in my system.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, could it be the reason why? What could these people have seen? What could they have seen? So that's when I started munching on those details. Then I actually backtracked properly. I literally slowed down. I even decided I'm actually not going to continue trying to push this. Let me just let it take its course.
Okay.
And apparently she was comfortable with that because she didn't press for anything. I went to Naginpatni. Naginpatni is a shop that sells rings just next to Stanley Hotel.
Yeah.
So I'm there, and the guy is, the lady is measuring the circumference of my finger.
Okay.
And she just measured my finger. Then she asks for my lady's finger. She wasn't there with me. So I was about to give her the measurements, and I get a phone call from this lady's cousin. He's a guy who works around the place where she used to work. And he says, I hear you've been dating. This is now not the cousin who had said I should be keeping it. This is a different one.
A different one.
And he says, I hear you've been dating my cousin for a while. I want you to be very careful. I said, what do you mean careful? He said, I want you to ask yourself if you know her very well.
This is coming from
a cousin of hers.
Okay.
Telling me, I want you to ask yourself if you know this lady very well. Now, usually the people who will call you in a relationship will say, take time to know each other.
Yeah.
This one is telling me, take time to know this one. And this is a cousin. This is not an ex-boyfriend you can say they're jealous or anything. This is a family member. They have nothing to lose or gain by making suggestions.
But family members can also be jealous.
Well, to the extent that they want the relationship to fail,
yeah,
yes. But to the extent that they want to directly benefit from it, that's a big variable.
Okay.
So he said that. Then I asked him, what information do you have? He said, that's all I can tell you for now. He said, listen, I'm in Nairobi buying rings for this girl. So if you know something that I should know, tell me. Rings are not cheap. He said, all I can say for now is that you ask yourself if you're the first man to pay dowry at our home.
So what you mean to say is, this lady, the parents have received dowry from another man.
Likely. From the information I was getting.
And he didn't clarify this?
He didn't clarify. He just said, you go and ask yourself. He said, I'll not say much. Just go and ask yourself if you're the first man to pay dowry at our home. Then he hung up. So now I'm stuck outside Stanley, and I'm looking at the sky and everything is dark. I'm like, what just happened?
Okay.
Am I losing this relationship? And so I rushed back to Eldoret and I asked her, did someone pay dowry at your home before? And she didn't confirm it. So I felt like at this point, maybe my decision to leave, maybe now this is the time I should actually walk away.
How would you feel if you paid dowry only to realize that there's another man who paid dowry to the same lady that you paid dowry to, and that lady never even thought it was important for her to open up and tell you that this had happened before? We'll hear more of this when we come back from the break. You have paid dowry for someone who has been paid dowry for?
Before. Yes.
This is interesting and confusing at the same time. How did you take this information?
It broke my heart because I'd not heard about it, at least not from her. It broke my heart completely because, in fact, at some point I even thought that arrangement is still active. And I'm actually walking into a relationship with someone who is still alive with someone else.
And nothing of this sort surfaced when you're at their place negotiating and paying dowry?
Zero.
No signs at all?
Nothing.
So what did you do with the rings?
I didn't buy them because at this point, my mind was now geared towards finding out the truth and then from what she says out of this situation will decide whether we are moving forward or not. So I didn't get the rings. I just decided. And the rings are going to cost 65K. That is money you're going to bring to someone and you're not even sure if everything is lined up. So I stopped, I halted everything. I just came back to Eldoret and decided to fix the issue. Now, this is what she said. When I confronted about this particular issue, she said, listen, if you think this is too much for you, I can ask my mother to give you back everything you brought home.
Wow.
And kila mtu aende zake. I told her, I'm not breaking up with you. I'm not even saying that we should take a break. I'm just saying, let's push the wedding to a later date like February or even April until we fix this. Because every time you turn around, something is coming up. We can't enter a marriage like this.
But let me ask you, this is an opportunity for you to regain whatever you had given out.
Yeah.
This is a woman, yes, you fell in love with and you had plans to settle down with.
Yeah.
But you have had so many signs to tell you that this could not be the right relationship for you to be in.
Yeah.
You have been given an opportunity to take back your life. What made you press on? What made you not to decide to take back your dowry?
I loved her. And I figured she's just going through a phase and it's going to disappear. It's going to be normal.
But you know, this has been happening all through.
Yes, but I don't know. I loved her properly. So it made me feel like there's still something to fight for. People normally say, and I think I've heard this several times, even from quarters all over the place, especially in context of this kind, that anytime you have a conflict, always look back to the thing that brought you together the very first time.
Yes.
So when you keep your eyes on that one thing that brought your interests, your thoughts, all your ambitions together, then that thing keeps you going, makes you realize, okay, I can still fight for this.
And what was that one thing that you kept looking back to that was stronger than every other thing that was happening around the two of you?
She had potential, a lot of potential, and she was someone who I could work with in the future to do several things. She was very enterprising in her thinking. She was very driven. She was knowledgeable. She was several steps ahead with anything that she wants to do.
Okay.
So I figured these other small issues pale in shadow compared to what her life is all about and what she can do for us and for herself in 10 years to come, 15, 20, whatever. So basically I was giving her what they call, they should call it a clean bill of health, or I was just giving her a benefit of doubt or a clean slate for the future, hoping that this stuff will disappear and then we keep driving. That's where we're heading, and she can get there. So let me tailor all this stuff to make sure she gets there.
Did she have anger issues? Because the way you describe her, she seemed to have been the ideal woman you wanted, but at the same time she would react to issues.
I wouldn't really say that. I would just say she was impulsive,
okay,
but not really angry.
So I can ask my mom to give back everything you brought home,
and everybody goes their way.
And everybody goes their way.
Yes.
And what happens next?
I said, immediately she said that I didn't even sit for 2 seconds. I said, why would you even say that? I'm not saying we should break up. I'm saying, let's push this wedding forward until we fix the stuff that we need to fix. I'm not asking us to break up. She said, no, I don't care. Whatever it is that has been happening today, this, tomorrow, that, I just feel like we should forget about this. When we broke up completely, that happened towards the end of November is when it actually happened, way after even the wedding date. That's when we decided now this cannot work. Everybody can actually now go their way. My heart was so broken. I went to Uganda. I went to my aunt's place in Uganda. My aunt has a very big house in Uganda. She lives like a queen. So I told her I'm coming to stay underground. She has a house that has even rooms down below. I don't know what she does with all those rooms. I just said I'm coming to stay for 2 months. I don't want to be disturbed by anybody. Because everywhere I go in Eldoret, even there are some men who had given me money for their suits. They would call me and say, hey, tunasikia things are going other way. Leta pesa yetu. So I send them back their money. You know, every time you go to church after service, you brought a lady here, we saw her, we went to pay dowry. What's happening? When's the wedding? You say, the wedding is coming. So I got tired of answering those questions. I left.
Okay.
The 2 months I didn't heal from her completely.
Okay.
But at least I was able to push people away. At least for 2 months I was not hearing anybody asking me silly questions. For 2 months. But then I still had that heart in me. I was still hurt. Even after 2 months. When I came back, I still felt this should not have happened.
Have you guys met after all this?
We met 2018 May. I used to look at her Facebook profile picture, and she's standing in front of some beds, and I didn't understand what that was all about. So this one time I'm driving along Ngong Road from Nakoma Junction towards the current bypass, and usually I drive with the driver's window slightly open, and I hear someone shouting my name, Lagwina. So I look across and it's her. So I pull off to the side of the road, I cross, and I go to say hi. Since 2010 November, I saw her again 2018 May. So I just went and said hi. Hi, you okay? Yes. Everything is fine? Yes. Went back to the car.
Wow. That's it. No feelings. No nothing.
Even if there were, that was not the place to deal with them. I didn't want to bring up anything. I just greeted her, walked back to the vehicle.
So you have been able to narrate your story to us and to our viewers. But I want to ask you, what do you think was your greatest contribution towards the failure of this relationship?
My greatest contribution towards the failure. Wow. I can say that my inability to rise to the consciousness of the red flags that I was seeing is what eventually caused this to fail, because it seemed like if I would have fixed this much earlier, the question would have been different. The question would have been, what did you see that made you leave?
Yes.
And then I would have left at that point.
Yeah.
But because I stayed all through the progression of all these collection of red flags and issues, I think I contributed by allowing it to continue and by thinking that it was going to stop, which it did not stop.
And what made you decide to assume the red flags?
Love, commitment, hope, and the fact that she's human and that I'm also human, and maybe there are mistakes I'm making that she's not telling me about, whichever way she wants to live her life. Maybe she just decided I'll not be telling him what he's doing. I didn't know. I don't think there's any time in the whole time I was dating that she ever mentioned anything I was doing, like I was mentioning things that she was doing to her. She never said anything I was doing. So whether there was actually something wrong I did that she kept to herself, or whether I didn't do anything wrong at all, which is impossible, her reasons for keeping that information to herself are not clear to date.
At some point during your narration, you mentioned that one of the cousins called her and asked her to make sure that you are from a certain tribe.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel at any point like you were paying dowry or getting into a relationship with a community, or you were marrying a family as opposed to the lady that you loved because of that kind of an interference?
Yeah, I felt it. And that was not only from her side, it also came from mine. There are people who stopped me in the middle of town one time and said, we've heard you're marrying a girl from
that side.
Yes. What is taking you there? We have women in this part of the country, in that part of the country. Why would you go that direction? So even from my side, there are people who say that to me. But this was my answer to them. This lady is an individual. Yes. Until she behaves like the people you're describing, fine. Until then, to me, she's individual so and so. And that's why I figured there was no reason to push it any further. But the truth of the matter is, at that point, I felt discouraged because I realized if this is... I used to hear those things happen when people are told, oh, you must marry from this community. Now it's happening to me. My the cousin to my fiance is being told, make sure that guy is from our tribe.
Yeah.
And so it made me realize that there are people who may not directly benefit from your relationship, but they want the opportunity to decide who gets into that relationship and with what parameters. So in that sense, it sounds like it's a communal thing. In that sense, it sounds like it's communal.
Why didn't you try to get your independent investigations done on what really happened with the first dowry payment?
Because I went to the source. She is the source.
Okay.
If dowry was paid on her behalf, she must have known about it.
Yes.
She was there. So instead of... Ideally, I should have asked the parents or the uncles or the people who sat in that meeting. But I had their daughter with me. And if she was there, she knew. So I went and asked her.
And she got defensive?
Yes, I went and asked her.
Answered.
She never answered. That question has never been answered today.
Yes.
It has never been answered.
And my question today is, why did you not take it a step further to investigate after she decided now to become defensive about the whole issue?
Mainly because I figured that there are some issues concerning two people that by the time you bring other people in, the presumption is you fixed them.
Yes.
So the presumption with my family is that if I asked them to accompany me to pay dowry in Nyahururu,
yes,
their presumption is that Laguina has fixed issue 1, he has fixed issue 2, he has fixed issue 3, he has done his research, he has done all that is required to do, and we are now going to pay dowry because the ground is clear.
Okay.
So I didn't feel comfortable going back to them again and saying, the dowry we just paid, this is the issue that's coming out of it. They would have thought me irresponsible, which is technically what it was. I was a bit irresponsible in that sense.
Okay.
And so that's one reason I didn't bring them in. The second reason I didn't bring them in was because if this lady really wanted to tell me the truth, she would have. But when she denied it, when she deflected the question, when she pushed away a potential inquiry that could have fixed all this, I thought, okay, even if I do my own investigation and I find out from the family members that this is indeed true, the person who is supposed to be interested in all this is not. So it doesn't matter. That's why I didn't push it further. Apart
from this money issue, what were the other red flags that you noticed and you didn't take action at that particular time that you would have rather taken action, you wouldn't be at this place right now?
She was not a clear communicator. She would answer questions based on need-to-know basis. So what you don't need to know, she wouldn't tell you. And that is not supposed to be the case in any relationship. 2, it seemed like the things that happened to her made more sense than the things that happened to me. She cared more about what the relationship is giving to her than what it's giving to me. Another issue is whenever she would get angry about something, she would fix the issue right there and then. Doesn't matter who is around. One time she actually quarreled me in a hotel in front of the waiters for being late for a coffee date. She was also very presumptive. When you ask if she's done something, she would not do it and then say it can't be done. She would just tell you she's sure it can't be done without even trying. So sometimes our conflict will arise from, how do you know this can't work if you haven't done it?
Okay.
So at least those four major things were things that I had seen from way before.
What are some of the blames that were leveled against you?
From her?
Yes.
She said that I'm very bossy, and I don't allow her opinions to take currency in any conversation or any discussion. Another thing that she said I was doing was that she felt I wasn't very, at that time, she felt I wasn't very ambitious with my quest. Yeah, she wanted me to make applications to many other places, some that she had recommended. So those are the two major things that she kept saying many times after, not realizing. She didn't want to know the reasoning behind it. She just knew I told him to do this, he never did it. I've been trying to push him to do this, he didn't do it.
Laguna, are you a virgin?
No. That can be. That question cannot have a positive answer.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, unless you stratify or clarify what you mean by virginity, because at this level there are different stages of virginity. There's primary virginity, there's secondary virginity, there's tertiary virginity.
All right.
So if there's a reference you're making,
yes,
in any of those categories, maybe I can get an
thing
answer.
Is, from our discussion, I didn't hear you mention at any point where you guys, if you ever got intimate. Did you ever get intimate with your ex?
Twice.
Yeah.
And
twice.
Yes, and
just
funny enough.
Twice.
Funny enough, it was twice.
Yes.
Twice because
yes,
we got into this arrangement that we will not engage in sex until we get married. We had that arrangement. That agreement was a preliminary discussion we had.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why it's only twice. And that twice, ironically, that twice was after August 19, when all these issues were happening. Yeah, in the middle of all that is when we got intimate at least twice. Yeah.
During all this fracas, how did that make you feel? Breaking the promise that you had that you would only have sex after you're married. And do you think this helped you guys to work out your issues, or it made your issues even more difficult?
No, it didn't help us at all. It didn't help us. And I felt bad that I broke the vow, and she did as well. But I think at this point I just thought, well, this is not going to work anyway. So the context of that commitment was already fading. So there was no reason to keep it anymore, quote unquote. So that's why I just let it go. But intimacy did not fix anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long has it been after the breakup?
It's been 9 years now.
That's quite some time.
Yeah.
During this period, are you seeing anyone? Are you married? I noticed you're wearing a ring.
This ring was a gift that came with a watch, so I put it on as ornament. But I am not married yet. I'm hoping to. But after that relationship, I kind of slowed down. I decided to I'm not saying that I'm still living in the shadow of that. I'm just saying that it kind of put brakes on my quest for something more meaningful and more stable. So I just decided to rest it out.
So for all these 9 years, you're not seeing anyone?
I have seen two people actually.
Okay. Two people meaning you're seeing
Not
two at the same time.
not simultaneously, but serially.
Yeah.
Not serial monogamy, one at a time.
All right.
Yeah.
And currently, as we speak, are you in any serious relationship?
No. No.
I am tempted to ask what happened to the two.
So the one was I made the mistake. She had mentioned that she had a friend whom she was relating with before we met.
Okay.
And she had mentioned that relationship had already disappeared.
Okay.
But then as we kept relating, there are facts that were coming out of that were not implicit of what she had mentioned before.
Mm.
It seemed like something was still going on. And so I confronted her several times, and she would say their relationship is purely professional. And so there's nothing I should suspect. But you see, when someone tells you a relationship is professional, there are certain things you're not supposed to see. Like, for example, if you tell me my relationship with a certain woman, if I tell my wife my relationship with a certain woman is professional, there are certain messages you're not supposed to find on my phone from that woman.
Yeah.
There are certain interactions I'm not supposed to have with that professional woman.
Okay.
Yet this was the opposite. And so she kept saying, I'm the one who is insecure. She's assured me that the person is not anything else but a professional friend. I made a mistake. And I made a mistake in an attempt to revenge to revenge on her.
Okay.
That way of living, that if she doesn't think her ex is an issue, or whoever this
then
person is,
she should not have an issue with whoever
she should not have an issue with me doing the same thing, and actually did it specifically to hurt her. I called one of my exes one time just to meet for coffee, one time. And that information was supposed to go back to her for me to see how she would feel, because I have been dealing with this for 4 months.
And it ended up?
And of course, it backfired on me thoroughly.
Okay.
So
the second one, briefly?
The second one is she was coming out of a divorce after a violent marriage. And so I met her in the context of that. She was trying to get a full divorce from the ex-husband. And so one time the ex-husband showed up and gave her warning, said, if you continue seeing this guy, I'm going to take the children away from you. And these are things he was doing even before. Every time she would try to make progress, the guy would come and destroy. Anything she wants to do, the guy would come and... So when this guy said those words to her, she was very hurt, and she said she can't lose her children. So she sacrificed me.
Okay.
So that's how it ended. This one just ended the other day. This was in March.
Okay.
So now I am a single man again.
Ready to mingle?
Right now, actually, I'm not ready to mingle. I think I've reached a point. I'm single and I don't want to search anymore.
If your ex, the one you paid dowry to,
Yes,
came back and said, Laguna, I'm sorry, I did some wrong things, and I have realized that you're the man I should settle down with, would you give her a second chance?
no.
Why?
Because I would forgive the mistakes,
Yeah.
but I would not live with her. Because my forgiveness to her would not be equal, would not be predicated on the idea of accepting her back.
How do you cope with sexual urges? We are men, and even in the Bible it says it's not good for a man to be alone.
Actually, when the Bible says it's not good for man to be alone, I don't think it totally refers to sexual urges only. It's basically talking about the makeup of life with someone by your side.
Which
Now,
includes
It includes
sex.
It includes,
Yes.
but it's not the only thing.
Yes.
Now, if that is the case, I just pray.
Oh, hey, man. I refuse to take that answer. Yeah?
I pray, and I try to. One of my biggest hobbies is traveling. So I travel a lot, and when I'm doing stuff out there, My mind does not get into all.
Our minds can only be engaged for a specific period of time.
True.
But our emotions and feelings take the best of us at certain times.
Yeah.
And believe you me, you don't travel every time you feel like
True.
you want to see a woman.
True.
So I will partly accept your answer, but I'll partly refuse that answer. Because it's been 9 months. You've been in 2 other relationships.
9 years, actually.
9 years, I mean. You've been in 2 other relationships.
Yes.
Have you...
I was intimate with those 2.
You were intimate?
Very intimate, in fact.
Okay.
Like...
So you were intimate until...
Regular intimate.
3 months ago. Because the last one ended like in March.
Yes.
Yes. So you were intimate until March.
Until March, yes.
So it means you're praying and you're sexually active.
Oh,
my God.
That's what is happening.
Yeah.
March was my last encounter.
Yes.
And since then, I've just been praying.
Okay.
Yes. There's no one in my life since March. So as far as sex is concerned or any kind of intimacy is concerned, it has not happened. Yeah.
The young boys says, wananyonga. Have you ever nyongad the monkey?
No. No. I don't do those kind of things.
It is... These are some of the things we don't want to talk about.
I understand.
But they're happening in our society.
I understand they're happening.
Yes,
I'm not my perception and my awareness is not close to that. It's not close to that idea. It happens.
Yeah.
But I don't do that.
Okay.
I don't. I find it. I'd rather even call a friend, because as men we have good friends. We have people women who are just friends. You can call and say, honestly, I am. If I don't get anything today, I'm done. Now, I'd rather have a friend like that, if that's actually acceptable, quote unquote, than go that other direction.
How many of these friends do you have?
That was just a hypothesis.
What are you saying? As men, we have these friends.
Well, that's a fact. It's a fact for which I'm prepared to defend, because it's
Please
true.
do. We have 1 minute. I want you to defend that fact.
Men have those kind of friends. I do have those kind of friends.
Okay.
But it's not so that you can keep making those kind of calls to them. You just have them so that at the point when you really feel you're pushed to the wall, you'd rather call someone and have intimacy the right way than pleasure yourself. It's more like an option of one and not the other.
How different is that from buying sex from a sex worker?
You're not paying for it. The friend you're calling is not a business transaction. They are not walking through the door, you hand money, then they walk into your room. No.
And how are you able to do this without allowing feelings to crop in?
Now that's the point.
Because you see, this is what is said.
Yes.
For men, sex is just sex.
Yeah.
For women, it's different.
Yeah.
So this is just a friend you call upon to come and...
Now keep in mind, initially, I began saying this particular segment that we are now dealing with, I began mentioning it as a way out of self-pleasure, as a way out.
Yes.
I was not recommending it. I was saying that if it really has to get to that point, you'd rather have someone that you can call than have to do that. I'm not saying it's a law. I'm not even saying that men out there should do it. I'm just saying that people have different ways of solving their issues, and if you feel this particular issue, this particular time, this is the direction you want to take, it's okay. Now, it's dangerous because when feelings come into it, that becomes another relationship. So that is why the best solution is actually just abstinence. Wait until you get someone else, get into another relationship, and then organize your way through it and come up with mutual a mutual arrangement for it.
My director is telling me our time is up.
Yeah.
What would be your parting shot based on your experience? What would you tell men out here? What would be your advice to them?
I would say that anytime you get into a relationship of any kind, anytime you feel like you want to settle down with whoever it is you want to settle down with, it's good to take time to develop a profile of this person and a very comprehensive profile so that people don't have relationships that keep breaking all the time, because relationships break because of insufficient information. They break because people are not told what they needed to know. People didn't hear what they needed to know. And so my advice to all men, just take your time. If you feel you're not ready for this, don't get into it. And if you're ready for it, do your due diligence. Pray harder. God is a big factor in relationships. You can't have any relationship without God. So if you don't engage Him, it will just fail. That's just how simple the calculus is.
And where does this leave you? By show of what you pick after telling your story and reminding yourself of what happened to you during this relationship. Emotionally, where do you stand?
Emotionally, I stand here. I think I've come through it, and although some parts of it still pain, but majorly I've come through it, and I think I would not be able to repeat the same mistakes again. So in a very technical sense, I can say I am healed, and I'm moving on. And I may not have someone right now, but that isn't because of this. It's just because I'm on a break of some sort, but I'm okay. And I hope everyone else who has gone through what I've gone through will be okay as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for making time to come to our show and sharing your story. There you have it, our viewers, from the man himself, Laguina, who has gone through a series of events in his life that actually really transformed how he looks at relationships. He advises us to be cautious when we are dating people and when we decide to settle down with anyone, be it a man or a woman. It is important for us to do our background checks and just be sure of the people that we want to settle down with. And that is it for today on Bittersweet Love Talk Show. And until next week, this is your host, Alton Njumba.